You were born as a sacrifice, placed here to give your gift. Your duty to yourself and to your fellow man is to use your unique talents, experiences, and passions to create, build, and share yourself with the world. Most people are not operating with purpose. They have reasons for doing things, but no larger mission. This is the path to mediocrity. To combat this, align your life with your reason for being. As you do so, you will experience more happiness, harmony, fulfillment, and achievement. The challenge is to discover and then pull from the stone the sword of your spirit to wield and wage war with the world. The answers are within. You just need to know the right questions to ask.
The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vitruvian Podcast, a podcast centered around self-mastery. I'm your host, Zach Shankin. For those just listening, you won't be able to immediately tell that this episode is different, but for those watching, which is how I encourage you to consume this episode, you can find it on YouTube or Spotify with the video. This will be a walkthrough of what I'm calling the DaVinci Blueprint, which is a life architecture document. I'll go into more of what that means in a bit as I continue to kind of march through the document and explain all of the components of it. But what you have before you and what you can expect in this podcast is essentially, I'm going to title it something to the effect of, if you're lost, start here. And I think that is one of the most common messages I get, but you see it across every person you meet in life. There's just this sense that there is no direction. People are doing lots of things. They're keeping themselves busy. They're working different jobs, experimenting all the time. And I think it's helpful. It's good to stay busy, but taking an intentional time to pause, spend some time in reflection and getting course correct on the direction of your life is extremely important. As I go into here in the writing of this document in a second, I'll be reading it out to you, but there's something to the effect of it's far more important to move towards the right direction rather than move quickly in the wrong direction. Everyone's really focused on speed, like you're not moving fast enough, you're not doing enough, I'm falling behind. And I think that that's a trap, I think that that's a scam, I think that that's a lie that's sold to us. It is far more important and far more critical to be aiming at the right thing, and that internal compass can only be assessed from within. And so this document isn't to give you anything that is without yourself, it is to help you access that which is already within you. It is exercises for facilitating that conversation, because telling somebody to go home and just listen to your intuition, while that is really deep wisdom, practically speaking, it doesn't give them a whole lot to do. It doesn't give you, the listener, a lot to be able to go back on unless you seek out something like coaching, like the work that I do. But not everyone's ready to make that kind of investment. So for anyone who is just interested in facilitating some of the work on their own, I wanted to create this document, which is distilled from my full 12-week program that is within my paid community, which you could access if you join. But if you just want to start here and just want to start on finding some clarity and architecting your life, this is an amazing place to start. I've named it the DaVinci Blueprint. As you might surmise from a lot of the branding, the Vitruvian Man is here on the cover, as well as the namesake of this podcast, Da Vinci being a massive inspiration to myself. The obviously definition of the Renaissance man. In the past, I've discussed kind of carving out your three Vitruvian identities: the warrior, the philosopher, and the artist, nurturing your physical body, your mind, and philosophy of self, and of course, your creative spirit as a creative being that I believe we all are. We will get into that a little bit later in this document about purpose, because I think that we were all born for a reason. And this document and the nature of all of my work is getting as many people as possible aligned with their gift to give the world and then spending the rest of their life giving it. So without any more intro, I think I'll just get right into it. And yes, I am going to read through the actual document here. I know you can read, but I spent probably 100 hours revising this document over and over and over, making sure that there was no wasted word. And I think that everything that is still inside this is helpful. And this is just an additional resource, this podcast specifically, for those that want to walk through it together or get a little bit more context or examples along with each of the documents. So we have the cover page here, and then on the next page, one can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery over oneself. I think that's an extremely apt quote from DaVinci himself, and of course related to this podcast and this document that we are working through together. So here in the introduction, this self-authoring document is for the driven individual who wants to intentionally architect their life. It is far more important to aim at the correct target than to move quickly in the wrong direction. Clarity is your biggest asset. Everything you include here will manifest into reality over time, as long as the contents are focused on you offering your highest contribution. This document will change your life. The contents are as follows. First section will be the self, second section, the mission, and third section, the vision. The framework here, I think, is extremely important. Many people worry about the what, which is the mission, right? Like, what vehicle will I work on? What is the thing I'm supposed to be doing? And this is important. It's a critical piece, but it can't come first, because you can only find your mission or the mission that is meant for you when you actually understand the self and connect the self to the vehicle or mission that may be out there. You need to know who you are to see which specific thing may work out best for you. For example, you may need to discover that you are more on the introverted spectrum, but you're crazy gifted at writing. So your vehicle might be writing on Twitter, or might be starting a blog, or writing a book, or poetry, which is wholly different from creating video content and a podcast, for instance. Different skill sets. Some people have both. Some people have one. Some people have the other. But the important thing is to know thyself, as was written above the oracle at Delphi. I think that is also extremely parochial wisdom for a reason. And the whole point of this document is to give you the excuse and the tools as well to take that intentional pause on, rapidly racing through and trying to get through life, and just on to the next, so that you can course correct, adjust, audit, assess, like, am I aiming at the right thing? Do I actually want to go where this is taking me? If not, that's okay. How can we reorient and move directionally closer to what I'm supposed to be doing, along with what I'm supposed to be doing? Emphasis on your mission. I can't tell you what is best for you. You can only know with a deep internal knowing, and that's what these exercises are exactly for. It's not to give you anything that's outside of yourself. It's to help you access the truth within. So we begin with the self. First exercise here. To design the life that you want, you must first decide on who you want to be. You always select the avatar before playing the game. Complete the following exercises to remember who you were born to be. First exercise is called the talent stack. The best place to start is with the skills that you already have. Write them out in the table below. Do not assess the relative value or utility of each skill right now. It is called a talent stack because when combined, each individual skill compounds with the others, producing exponential leverage and value. A writer is good. A writer who's also good at graphic design and web development is deadly. So as you can see here, I'll zoom in a bit on this table here, but you kind of have different categorical skill types. And the point here is to write out anything and everything that you think applies, that you already have in your toolbox. This isn't things you're planning on learning. This isn't things that you think would be helpful. This is just where you are, baseline. What do you have to bring to the table? Again, list everything, and then don't judge yourself when you put down something that may seem seemingly insignificant. I tried writing out as many different options as I could. I think this is a screenshot of an old draft that I did at one point. So I tried to write out as much that worked for me, and hopefully these kind of ideas on this one can kind of spark your mindset. I encourage you to not look at this when you're doing your draft, but maybe briefly read over it to kind of understand if some of the categories don't make sense. But you have communication skills, technological skills, creative, 9 to 5 as I've called it. These are like just more organizational type stuff that you would see in a traditional work field, money management, and then of course your physical body, which is a massive gift, and everyone has varying degrees of those gifts as well. That could be anything from your physical attractiveness all the way to your physical prowess, call it strength, speed, athleticism, etc. Because again, you have no idea how these can combine into a really unique alchemy, because ultimately your chart could never look the same as mine, as the next person. There's a lot of magic in this. So this is a great place to start. I would encourage you to take as much time as needed on this. And we will kind of talk about coming back to these in review a little bit later. So don't worry about if it doesn't make sense, like, why are we doing this, blah, blah, blah. Just know that it's important to even just bring your cognitive awareness towards your skills. So start with this one. You can pause this video or podcast, work on it, come back, or continue listening on and then do the exercises on your own. I should also mention at kind of an earlier state of this podcast or video, if this document interests you and you want access to it, you can DM me on Instagram or Twitter. I can just send it directly to you. If you don't want to speak to me in person, you could always access it via the vitruvian.club. If you pay for the supporter tier of my kind of subscription options, it'll be a free digital download associated with that, same as if you chose to join my community. That's not a pitch to funnel you at an offer. Again, this is free out there. Theoretically, you could just watch it on YouTube and use the recording itself and write the exercises on paper. Like, I'm doing this because I want to help people, and those are the best ways I know to distribute it in a way that people can get access to, short of just having a PDF in my bio, which I'm not particularly interested in doing because I think it will fall to the wayside and decrease the significance of what this document can do for your life. Like I said at the beginning, it can and will change your life if it is focused on your highest contribution. I believe that deeply. I've seen it in my life and the lives of clients. So don't take this lightly. And that is also part of the motive or reason why I haven't chosen to just have this be, another digital download that falls into the ether and you download and then never use. Like the point of me walking through this even is to get you to actually do these exercises. They will fundamentally change your life. Okay, so for the second exercise, we have ego ancestry. Fill in the table below with all of the things and the people that have impacted and inspired you across your life. This creates a landscape view of your psychology. These things actively inform your creative voice and impact how you dress, how you organize your desk, the things that you buy, the goals that you have, and much, much more. Don't write things that you think someone would want to hear. Your responses reflect your unique perspective. So right there on that last line, it's similar as before. You're not trying to fill in the stuff that you think would be cool or looks great on paper. Like, you're just trying to define who you are and bring your awareness to the things that have impacted you. And so it's called ego ancestry because as your ego and identity of self is developing through your life, it's through the inputs that you've been taking since the beginning. So you kind of have this landscape view, as I'll zoom in here, from the people, the brands, film and TV, music, art, and various writings from books to poems to whatever, tweets even in the modern age, that have impacted you a lot. So, and you see the time scale on kind of the x-axis going from childhood to the present day. And it's kind of a mind map. It's not you have to date it exactly. The point is just to list as many as you can, make it super, super dense. I didn't in this document include a filled out version from myself, but I've walked myself through it before. I have it completed, and instead of this empty black box that you see on this document, it was like packed full, and theoretically you can keep going back and back and back and finding more and more. So this is an exercise I'd encourage you to take a first stab at and then come back later. It's adapted, actually. I got this exercise from a Virgil Abloh book. He was talking about the design process, and for him specifically, it was kind of like aesthetic inspirations throughout time. And I adapted it for more broad self-mastery purposes because I think it was an awesome exercise. I respect him as a creative a lot. And knowing some of the magic ingredients that have formed your sense of self can help you potentially bring awareness towards who you are and what you should be doing, what your gift is to give. Because a lot of us, say you're exactly my age, right? At the time of recording this, I'm 24 years old, so I was born in 1999. There were plenty of people born that year. There's probably plenty of people listening to this podcast that are that age or similar. So we all were exposed to a lot of the same pieces of media, or at least potentially could be, assuming you're born in the West, say you're also born in America, that could also be a large cohort of the people listening. Well, what struck you across that lifetime would be so different than what struck me. The point isn't necessarily what you were shown, but what really impacted you. What TV shows are singed into your psyche? What characters captivated you? What music just was the soundscape to your childhood? What art just completely captures your image? You might be a modern art person. You might have been captured, like myself, by kind of the Greek classical sculptures or the Renaissance artists. You might have loved the fictional mystery books when we were a kid, or maybe you really got into philosophy in high school, so you liked Nietzsche and Jung, and maybe you didn't like any of that. Maybe you only read murder mystery, or maybe you didn't read it all. Like, the point is the distribution is completely random, but its unique combination for you will point you where you're supposed to go and help you find who you are and eventually the mission downstream from this, which we'll get into. Other important notes, I'd say, like I said, do multiple reviews of this and try within each category to be as creative as possible. So like even in brands, right? Like, so one of them for me is Nike. I've always thought it was like the paragon of performance. There were so many Nike athletes that caught my attention throughout time. But I even thought of brands that I just think have cool aesthetics, because there's something about their kind of design or visual language that interests me. I'm not really a designer person. I don't own designer items, but I even listed things like Louis Vuitton, for instance, because for whatever reason, that's a brand that captures me as opposed to maybe a Dior or a Prada, right? Something about that brand and the lettering, maybe the color scheme, the ethos of the company captures me a little bit more than others. And the point is to, again, you don't place judgment on it. You're not trying to really do too much assessment. This is just dumping and kind of uncovering some of the stuff that was there throughout your life and has led you up to the present moment. And what's also cool is you'll get to see across that x-axis as you move through time how your personal tastes and interests have evolved, and see kind of what are the common elements and what maybe has directionally changed. Anyway, very, very useful exercise. It may not seem so as you're initially working through it, but just take a first pass, take a second pass, and this will be a good one to be detailed on. Next, we have pain and purpose. Great art changes the world, and great art often comes from pain. It's not required, but the writing is on the wall. Basquiat, Van Gogh, Cobain, Bourdain, Hemingway, Thompson, Caravaggio, Woolf, Plath, Nero, Socrates, and the list goes on. You have the opportunity to transmute your suffering into great works, transforming pain into purpose. So this exercise is essentially, as it is stated, you're going to find or write about what is or was the hardest life challenge that you've had to overcome. This could be the loss of a loved one, a friend, sickness, disease, serious injury, a major failure, a major regret, a heartbreak, bullying, anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, whatever comes to mind when somebody prompts you with what is the hardest thing you've ever had to overcome, or maybe the most painful thing that you've gone through. Put a highlighter to that and then write about that experience and how you overcame it. Take the time to actually write through this. Don't just answer in one line, it was when I got brutally bullied in middle school, or when I lost my dad in middle school. Actually kind of walk yourself back through that pain, potentially re-feeling some of the feelings. In my opinion, that's a healthy thing to do, period. But why this is important to spend time highlighting and why it's included in this section is, as I stated before, some of the greatest accomplishments in history, even extended outside of quote unquote the art world, were done by people with extreme pain. I'm not universally absolving them of their relative guilt. If somebody was particularly harmed in childhood and then went to become a massive success on, say, the battlefield as a general or as a boardroom CEO, their behavior is not what I'm getting at, right? Like, they may have chosen to inflict pain upon others to get their end goal, but at the same time, greatness still came out of and through them. I talk about Steve Jobs all the time on this podcast, but if you haven't read his autobiography/biography by Walter Isaacson/him, you get a bigger window into kind of his childhood and something Steve dealt with. Being an orphan and then adopted child was kind of just a general lack of sense of belonging. And that pain point of I'm never going to be enough, or I feel like I'm going to be abandoned, was kind of that initial catalyst, fuel, and fire for what completely altered the course of human history, the greatness and creation that came out of Steve Jobs and Apple. And I have no window into his personal felt experience, right? Like that might have been something that languished him till the day that he died. He may have resolved that pain, integrated it well, and been fine for the latter half of his life. But the point is that that was an important point in his life. Most of our biggest lessons in life come from a pain input. I've revised a lot of my personal philosophy around that. I used to think optimistically, like, you don't have to go through pain. You could just take it from somebody else. But when I'm just honest with my own experience and then watch time and time again in the life of people that I love and people that I meet, people don't learn the lesson until it hurts enough. It's a sad fact, but it's true. And it doesn't always mean a true rock bottom, like, financial debt or drug addiction. Sometimes it could just be letting yourself go a little bit physically or getting your heart broken in high school. But whatever that pain point is, it completely radically shifts the course of your life because it is now hurt enough to implant the lesson into your subconscious. As I think I've mentioned this before in this podcast, but I've described it before in conversation as like, you have a certain set of lessons that I believe God or the universe is trying to have you learn in this lifetime. So you will get the first opportunity and it will likely come as a whisper. That might be a quiet, intuitive pull. It might be someone, a mentor, kind of parochial, just like passing down knowledge, hoping that it becomes wisdom for you. And that's the whisper, that's the gentle nod. If you ignore that, then it becomes a shout, something louder in your life, something more obvious that you can then choose to ignore. Maybe it's slightly more painful, maybe it's a heartbreak. That could be your next opportunity. But if you ignore the shout, then the next time is with a hit in the face. And that hit in the face could be physical illness, could be losing a loved one, something incrementally more painful. And that's another opportunity to learn. And you either learn at any of these times or the pain is increased. Now, the next time, it's not a hit in the face, it's not a shout, it's getting hit by a car. And that could be literally getting hit by a car. It could be physical injury, could be essentially going to the verge of death. And then that's your moment where the pain has exceeded the threshold of a combination of your stubbornness or whatever it may be for the lesson to get into you. We could go into all of that stuff about learning lessons in another podcast. Maybe I will. But the point of this exercise, Pain and Purpose, is that if you can go to the moments that hurt the most thus far, there's magic in that. Because one, if the pain didn't win, i.e. you're still around, then you have a massive chance to, one, share your story and help other people be seen and heard through your pain and purpose. That's a massive benefit, whether that's one-to-one, just sharing with someone you love, or one-to-many in some form of content creation in the information age that we exist in, where you have kind of an infinite lever where you create some piece of content, writing, audio, video, otherwise share it, and you have no idea how many people that could impact. These are things that I think are extremely critical to the formation of the self and will play a massive ingredient as we move directionally closer to starting to go towards the mission. Next, we have what I call Archimedes levers. This section starts with a quote from Archimedes: "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." Days that are aligned with your goals are the bricks to building your ideal life. If you win the days, you win the year. To create winning days, include 3 lever activities. These are things that drive towards your goals. And 3 recharge activities, things that replenish your energy, i.e. gym, reading, meditation, time spent with friends, etc., every single day. First, write out 1 to 3 things that you'll remove every day. Second, define your 3 daily levers. And then third, define your 3 daily recharge activities. Now, this is much more seemingly surface level self-development stuff, but it is what I have found to be most effective, from crazy detailed bullet points to minute by minute breakdown of how you spend your day. I think this is the best way to make sure that you're stacking winning days in a way that's sustainable, in a way that's consistent, in a way that's clearly identified as a winning day, and also effective at building momentum. The reason you're choosing the 3 daily lever activities is for a few things. One is most action is wasted in general. People just do a bunch of stuff that isn't doing anything productive for them, essentially mentally masturbating on the idea that they're being productive. All the little shuffling of things and data during your day is mostly not moving you towards your goal. And I've talked about the 80-20 principle, but there's a tiny percentage of things that you do every day that have most of the impact. So that's what the lever tasks are. Wherever you're trying to get to, there's probably 1 to 3 things that if you just did those every single day and nothing else, you're going to move rapidly towards it. 2, you're choosing 3 because 3 is doable. You're always going to hit it. And then if you just check those 3 big boxes every day and see that every day those boxes are checked, you're starting to build serious momentum versus if you had, say, 27 items for today and 15 for tomorrow and 16, etc. If you miss any one of those medium or small goals, it's like, oh, I got 10 out of 18. Does that feel like a win today? Then you have to do all this assessment. You get down on yourself for missing. And it's meaningless. It's like you're directing your attention in the wrong place. So focus on the lever activities. Spend some time thinking what those might be for you, likely related to maybe building a business, maybe building your body, and maybe teaching yourself something. And then, of course, the recharge activities could also be related to some of those things as well, right? Like reading, training in the gym, spending time with your friends, getting a long walk, being in the sun. But these are things that are making sure that the lever activities, hitting those every single day, isn't this brutalist pursuit of just produce, output, but you're also being a human being along the way, not a human doing, and pouring back into that cup so that you have the ability to do it day in and day out. And again, just stacking one day at a time. If you hit your daily levers and then a few recharge activities to keep you in the game, you literally cannot lose. And the best part is you'll actually enjoy the process along the way towards whatever large goal you have for yourself, rather than hating the process and all this like obsession with the chase really sucking, which is going around a lot in my opinion. And you'll actually just live one day that you like at a time over and over and over, and then you'll wake up and you'll be exactly where you wanted to go, and you didn't hate it the whole time. It's a novel concept in today's world. A lot of the online guru space will not tell you the same thing because it, for whatever reason, is better marketing and communication to just yell at people through the internet and say like, you got to eat shit and you're not doing enough. I just reject all of that. I think it's cancerous. I hate that it's a part of it. So for whatever my voice can carry into that space, I will speak against that as a psyop, and I will call out the fact that it doesn't have to suck. I reject it. My life is a case study to it, and I've seen it in many other lives as well. So that is the Archimedes lever exercise, and that concludes the self. Next, we have the mission. The sword of your spirit. You were born as a sacrifice, placed here to give your gift. Your duty to yourself and to your fellow man is to use your unique talents, experiences, and passions to create, build, and share yourself with the world. Most people are not operating with purpose. They have reasons for doing things, but no larger mission. This is the path to mediocrity. To combat this, align your life with your reason for being. As you do so, you will experience more happiness, harmony, fulfillment, and achievement. The challenge is to discover and then pull from the stone the sword of your spirit to wield and wage war with the world. The answers are within. You just need to know the right questions to ask. First exercise here is no man is an island. This exercise highlights the times in your life with disproportionate return, things like fulfillment, joy, presence, etc., on your investments into them, like your time, your money, your effort, etc. Look both at the micro, daily and weekly, as well as the macro, your life at large. So this is called the Happiness Islands exercise, or it's taken from the Happiness Islands exercise by Richard Koch, who already in this podcast I've mentioned the 80-20 principle, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, all of those things by the same namesake. He has written multiple books around that idea, and in that book he talks about this exercise, which I've personally used with myself and clients as well, to help uncover like what the hell it is you should be doing, like what is the mission. And Naval Ravikant, somebody who is a thinker that I greatly admire, and I can't wait to one day get a chance to speak to him on this podcast, says that you should focus on what feels like play to you and like work to other people. And I think that this exercise hits kind of directionally towards that, because you can go back across your life. It's the best data set you have, right? Like your entire life that you've lived up till now is, first of all, the only data you have, but second of all of the data you have for who you are and what you should be doing. And if you go to the moments that really were disproportionately happy for you, like just that you were super fulfilled with joy, contentment, you were just super present, it felt like time didn't elapse, you just love those moments, they're going to be spaced in between. If you've been blessed to have a good life up until now, there'll be a bunch of them. If not, it'll at least be very clear with the few that you did. And when you pick out those little islands as they are spaced throughout your chronological history and then zone in on them with these questions here, what were you doing? What did you create? Who were you with? What was it for? What were you talking about? Where were you? What kinds of activities were involved? And what about it brought you joy? If you take the time to like identify each of these islands and then write out the answer to these questions, you start to essentially, when they're all written out, have a bunch of ingredients lists for things that will directionally get you closer to having this be, instead of a happiness island, you just move to the island and you live the rest of your life there. And the point is you do it for multiple of these events or islands throughout your life, both like daily, like really good days that you've had, really good weeks that you've had, and maybe even really good periods or months. Like maybe you did 3-month trip to Spain and it completely changed your life. When you write out all those ingredients lists for each of them and then compare and contrast one to the next, you'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Every single time I have disproportionate amount of happiness, I'm spending it with time that I love, or this specific person in my life, or I always happen to be in a warmer climate, or I was always outside, or I made an effort to write every single day, or that was a season of my life where I was really focused on working with my hands, or whatever. Like the list can go on and on and on, and these questions will help you get more clear on that. But when you see like that element or a few elements in every single island or many of them, you know that that's something really, really important to you. It's like hints that your higher self has been leaving through your path to help you, if you take the time, aim at building a future that has more of those involved in it. So this is a great one. I do this at least on a yearly basis, and this was part of what helped me find what I'm working on now. I was doing this exercise and another one that I'll show you in a second in my senior year of university when I was assessing like, all right, getting ready to graduate, what the hell do I want to do with my life? I know for sure it's not working a normal job as an engineer. Nothing wrong with it, but it was not my thing, and I could feel that as it was approaching graduation day. So I was like, I need to do some of the work here. And these exercises, while you're not going to reach divine premonition in a dream per se, I do believe it's priming your subconscious, and I have some language around that at the end of this document. But the whole point here with all of these exercises is as you're raising your awareness, you're just priming your unconscious mind to do the magic for you so that when you get an opportunity, or when someone's like, hey, do you want to do X trip? Or do you want to come meet this person at the cafe? Or a job application rolls across your email list. For whatever reason, you just feel like it's the right decision. That's because the groundwork was laid. Your subconscious, your intuition was primed to tell you the right answer. And if you haven't done all this work, it is less likely, I won't say impossible, but it is less likely that you'll be ready to seize and capitalize on all of those opportunities as they come across your plate. The next exercise here is Ikigai, a reason for being. This has become very popular, so you may have heard the term or perhaps have already done the exercise. In my purpose episode of the podcast a while back, maybe it was within the first 10 episodes, I think, I went over this exercise, but it's worth circling back to and certainly was worth retaining in this document here. Ikigai is formed with two Japanese words, ikuru, which means to live, and kai, which means the realization of what one hopes for. The Ikigai model below is a framework for exposing your unique reason for being using 4 core questions, which are, what do you love to do? What is it that the world needs right now? What can you be paid for? And what are you good at? And as you'll notice here, I've said that what do you love to do? I put in parentheses happiness islands, and then what are you good at? Talent stack. So we're starting to see it come full circle. Analyzing the self at the beginning has done some of the groundwork for us so that when we go to discovering what our mission or purpose could be, hey, turns out it's important who we are, and our past has some ingredients or important information for us. So what's nice is you've already done 1 and 4 mostly, So you can put those and plug those items into these larger buckets, and half the work is already done for you, and that might even bring about some answers for the other ones, which is what does the world need right now and what can you be paid for. Again, those two questions are external. What does the world need and what are other people willing to pay money for? But I think they're of lesser concern than what do you love to do and what are you good at, because that's the you part of the equation, right? Like, there are so many things you can be paid for, and the world theoretically needs a whole lot of different things. People are making money a billion different ways right now. Like, if you just step back in whatever environment you're listening to this in and pause and really sit and observe everything that's in your environment. I'm sitting in this room right now, and behind my computer is first of all, it's sitting on a desk that I didn't build because I'm not at the house where I built my desk. So somebody built this desk and sold it. That's interesting. But somebody also made the actual drawer pull knob out of metal. Somebody made money from that. There's a mirror over there. Somebody made money from that. There's bed sheets on the bed. There's food in the pantry. There's paint on the walls. Like, the list is infinite. So the point is, like, you can get yours. I think that that's honestly less of the equation, and it's way more about how do you get exactly what's meant for you. So spending the time initially with the self and then moving towards the mission it's why we're doing it, and it's why I'm going to continue to kind of hammer on that. And Ikigai's a great way to start blending the two of, that's cool, you can be whoever you want to be, but if you do it in a vacuum, you'll starve. And I don't think there's no nobility in poverty. And I think if you want to help the most amount of people, you should also become extremely abundant yourself. And it's a bi-directional relationship. As you help more people, you'll be helped more financially. And as you're helped more financially, you can help more people. So self-fulfilling upward spiral there. As you can see, there's intentionality behind the way that this exercise was designed / placed, at least in this document. So as I say in this document, sketch out the diagram here below. And I didn't go into this in this one, but there's just like a pragmatic breakdown is you can have a big piece of paper, which gives you a ton of room to write in for the big circles. That's one way to do it, and it's very visual. So if you have like a big document or maybe even a whiteboard, you can do that. And I think that's a fun way to do it. You can even use softwares like Canva or Figma or something. But if you prefer, you can do the circles on kind of the side of your diagram and then create a legend where you just put the numbers, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you have lists according to those numbers. They just give you more space, so you can have like a page separate for like, all right, what are all the things that I want to do, and just list bullet point in a straight list, and do that for all of them. The hard part is you won't get to see it in kind of this mind map of the document, which I think is some of the magic of Ikigai. So if you have the space or can get the space either with a large piece of paper or a whiteboard, or maybe you just have really small handwriting, I encourage you to do it with the actual bubbles. But regardless, take the time for this one, use this regularly, come back to it. There is actual magic in this. There's a reason it survived through the ages from whenever in ancient Japan this kind of was formulated. I don't remember or know its specific history. I haven't actually read the Ikigai book. I skimmed through it for this exercise when I initially found it, and have kept it a mainstay in the coaching that I do, the program that I have, as well as my personal life for a long time for a reason, because it has helped me a lot, and I see that as no coincidence. Finally, for the mission, by completing the exercise above, your subconscious will make connections that may not be revealed to you for months or even years. However, the groundwork is laid, and time reveals all. I truly believe that statement. It's why I included it, and you just need to trust that you're doing the right things. There's no additional effort that needs to be done other than the life that you've lived, and the answers will come to you by taking the time and intention to do something like this. If you've made it thus far in this exercise or this podcast or wherever, you are an extremely exceptional and uncommon person. You have no reason to worry whether it's going to work out for you, whether you're going to find your thing. I promise you will. You're doing exponentially more than the average person, and that's not what you should be comparing yourself to, but just be assured that you're going to find it out, because people with less have done more, and your time is coming, and it's all written for you at the right time. It's like the Steve Jobs quote. I literally posted it on my story today at the time of recording, but you can't connect the dots looking forward, so you just have to trust that you can connect them looking back. And that faith will give you the confidence to follow your heart moving forward. Like, that is literally foundational to my ethic and philosophy. And I think that it is so transcendent. All of this work here is to prepare the subconscious to give you the answers at the right time. And then 3 helpful questions to consider when you're reflecting on your mission, because again, eventually you do want to get that answer. And this exercise can help. So these questions are helpful. They're going to sound like ones that you've heard before, but pay close attention. So first is, if you couldn't fail, what would you attempt? This is a commonly asked one. It's good to know your answer. You know, if you couldn't fail, what would you do? If you knew you were guaranteed to win, what would you go for, right? Like, because fear holds a lot of people back. It's like, what happens? What happens if I don't? So that's a great question to answer. But next is, if you knew that you could never succeed, would you still do it? Now we're going from outcome driven, meaning number 1 is asking essentially like, what do you want to get to outcome wise if it was guaranteed? The second is, what if you could never get the outcome? Would you still do it and love the process? Would you still podcast every week for the rest of your life if you knew you could never grow a successful podcast or make money from it? That's a damning question, because all the time we're doing stuff we say that we enjoy, but it's at the guise of accomplishing this thing that's eventually there. And the danger is you get it. You actually arrive there and you're like, fuck, I really thought that was my thing. Turns out I hate it. I haven't been doing what I was supposed to be doing the whole time. And I've basically been living a lie. Now I have all this sunk time, which I don't believe anything is wasted, but we see it all the time with guys that get hyper successful in X, Y, and Z business. They get to the top of the hill. They thought it was going to make them happy to make $1 million a month, and they were wrong. So really good question to ask that I think almost nobody talks about is number 2, and that's process driven. So 1 is outcome driven, 2 is process driven, and then the third one is related to the process driven one as well. If you knew that the result was guaranteed, would you still enjoy the process? So this one is saying you get the thing, but it's guaranteed. There's no mystery. There's no real overcoming or accomplishment. You literally just have it. Would you enjoy the process? And this one, the kind of tricky banter, what I'm playing here is that I really do believe that if you actually go after something with the earnest intention of your heart, you will absolutely get the result that you're looking for. So the important thing is pick something that you enjoy doing along the way. Don't choose something that you suffer for along the way just to get the outcome. The point, I think that suffering that you experience in the meantime is literally God or the universe or the world signal saying like, hey, stop doing this. Hey, stop doing this. Hey, stop doing this. And if you drag your feet through it, which you can through willpower and, as people like to say, discipline, which I'm going to do a podcast on soon, guess what? You did the wrong thing. And then when you get it, it turns out you hated the process. So like all those maybe even years it took to build towards something, the only reason you put yourself through it was this kind of like mystery of the overcoming, or am I going to get there? Am I going to get there? And you placed all your attention out on that outcome, never focusing on how much it sucked. And then you get it and you're like, fuck, like what do I do now? I know I'm talking a lot about like getting into alignment here. Like that's kind of what the overarching message of this podcast and document is. But I think it's really critical. Like if all roads are going to be difficult, as in take effort, which I think they will, I think that life in this physical plane is effortful, then why not use the time and the effort to get on the right path than just a path that gives you some results that you like? Example being, it's hard to start a social media marketing agency, say. It's also hard to be a successful writer on Substack. If they both require a tremendous amount of effort and you ultimately want to be writing, why would you spend the time to build the agency to get the money so that then you now have the money to then go start building the writing thing, which will still take the same amount of time it would have taken the whole time because you still have to build the audience, get better at writing, continue to improve your craft, et cetera, et cetera. You've only time delayed the difference between you getting to a place where you're doing the thing that you want. And I think that you should spend as much of your life as possible enjoying the process. Like enjoying the passing of time is a pretty good way to describe what I think we're here to do. And I think that when we're enjoying the passage of time, that's a clue that we're in alignment. And when we're in alignment, we're giving our gift. And when we're giving our gift, we are living as I believe God intended us to, which means we're helping as many people as possible. It doesn't mean that it has to be your means of making money. I think that it's totally fine to have a job to support your thing. or your mission, but we also live in a time where you're uniquely able to blend the two if you really go after it and use the tools that are at your disposal. So if you're looking for more direct feedback or ideas or advice, message me on any platform. I'm happy to kind of go back and forth. Again, this is literally what I love to do. That's just an offer to throw out there. You can even join the community. We're always talking about stuff like this on live calls and in the messages. So it's another way to get access and form more of a dialogue amongst the community. But again, I don't want this to turn into a pitch or feel like some sort of sales pitch. I have nothing to sell you except yourself. I do sell services and things, which are your choice to consume or not, but I'm not using this as any sort of funnel at all. I want you to be on your mission, even if we never speak, and you just see this quietly on YouTube and disappear into the distance and give your gift. Like, I know that energy is coming back around for me and mine because we're all in this thing together, and I just want you to succeed. So as corny as that may have sounded, onward past the mission to the final section of the vision. So you've spent time with the self, you're moving directionally towards uncovering your mission. The subconscious is heavily primed. How do we bring about a little bit more emotional attachment and energy towards this vision and direction? First, we have inner circle engineering. So to achieve the most of which you're capable, you must do it alongside others who want the same. Competition, support, mentorship, shared values, and in the end, shared success. The strength of the wolf is his pack. But before you can find them, you must define the types of people you want and why you will want them there. A clear vision will allow you to find/attract them easily. So these questions here are for finding your proverbial wolf pack. As I've talked about on this podcast before, there's the kind of lonely period when you're starting your self-development journey, where you have to shed the former version of yourself, which also means shedding the former friends and circle that you had around you, which is fine. Life is in seasons. It is very natural. But then you're alone, which is not how you're meant to spend the rest of your life. So you need to find in the next group of people. The magic and the great thing is that they're alive. They exist. They're out there doing something already. So you don't have to manufacture them. You just have to find where they are by defining who they are first. So first question is, what are their main priorities? Things like health, honesty, loyalty, fun, adventure, deep thinking, etc. Second is, what activities, jobs, hobbies, habits are these people doing that make them high value to you? And this is, again, one of one to yourself. Define some of the things that they're doing that make them interesting to you. 3, why are they better than your current circle? 4, where do these people currently spend their time? Write out a list of 5 to 10 local spots and then 5 to 10 places you could travel to find them. And that's kind of where the magic is, right? So you've kind of defined archetypally the traits that you find admirable in other people. You'll also notice that when you answer these questions, you're essentially creating a list of things that you either want to be like or are already like, because ultimately we attract who we are. So all that to say, you've defined kind of who you're looking for: health conscious, travel focused, entrepreneurs who are focused on spirituality and philosophy and whatever. Like, that's me speaking for some of the interests I have in my circle and myself personally. So then the question is like, well, where do I find them? So there's a few things you can do. One is writing out these local spots and places you could travel to. You may know of places, as I'm recording this from Bali, here is a hub for digital nomads, creative, spiritual people, healthy, vital fitness people. So I took myself here in the past and even now in the present for a second trip. So seek that out, whether it's locally in your area, locally in your country, or internationally if you are capable. And if it is locally, the benefit of physical spaces is that it's a pre-selection filter, meaning people take themselves there because they want to do the thing that space is conducive for. People go to bars to do the things that you do at bars: get hammered, be sexually degenerate, and listen to loud music and whatever. I've had my season with that. I'm not particularly into that kind of thing now. Do what you will. If that's part of who you're trying to find, I doubt it if you're listening to my content. But if it is, then define the places you might find those people. And the bar itself has pre-selected the types of people that are there. So you go there and your statistical likelihood of finding the right people is high. Also, if you want to find somebody who has an online business, go to a co-working space. That's where the entrepreneurs do their work. You're at a pretty high likelihood of finding somebody who does those kind of things. Or if you're a total bookworm and you're trying to find people to have a book club with, go to a library, find the people poking their nose through the philosophy section or caught up in a book in the chair in the back of a library or a bookstore. Like, it sounds really, really obvious, but nobody's doing this kind of thing. And instead of just hoping to meet them randomly along your path, and or someone to like message you out of the ether, which might be a thing, be the change agent, be the crazy person that goes up to someone, because they're also craving that kind of interaction too. And you'll be shocked at how many people are waiting there and how many friends you have that you just haven't met yet. So next we have a section on defining the one. I've hesitated up until this point to openly, i.e. in like my podcast or content, discuss anything about relationships. If this is an interesting topic to you guys, comment below and I could open up the Pandora's box of the relationship world. I have a lot of thoughts on relationships, intersexual dynamics, masculine, feminine. It's probably something I'll go into regardless, but if you want to hear something sooner rather than later, message me or comment and I'll go into that stuff. But as you architect your life, you must seek a partner worth building an empire with, and I will also add 4. Keep this list where you can update it over time. Be detailed. Do not be conservative. Ask greatly to receive greatly. In a note titled, "What does," insert your name, "partner look like?" Answer the following. First, what are they like? Personality, sense of humor, intelligence, disposition, introversion, extroversion, etc. Second, what do they do? Things like routine, job, hobbies, diet, habit, sex life, love language, communication skills, attachment style, etc. Third, what is their background? Family relationships, father, mother, etc., education, raised in or out of religion and faith, relationship history, drug or alcohol use, etc. Fourth, what are their core values? Things like loyalty, respect, honesty, beauty, faith, etc. And fifth, what is their vision for the future? Kids, yes or no, how many, when, how to educate them, city versus rural, work versus stay at home, job, lifestyle, etc. So this is an important one to get clarity on instead of just dating the next person that gives you affection or attention. Be intentional by defining who you're looking for and then walk away from it. All of this stuff is letting your subconscious and God and the universe and whatever you want to call it, there's literal magic going on all the time. If you create this note, as I wrote in the disclaimer at the bottom, you are literally creating the partner of your dreams. It may not happen soon, but you will meet them. Don't take this lightly. I shit you not, like I did this exercise for the first time upon a recommendation from a mentor 2 years ago, I think. And that first draft of the note, I met a strikingly similar female to that note not even a few weeks later. That relationship has since ended for both personal reasons, and then also I would say the note has evolved and updated because of that relationship, which is all good. That's how life and relationships go. However, it was uncanny. I'm like writing out things about eye color, height, like literally down to what they look like, right? Not only the bigger ticket items, but I literally just wrote out this kind of character and ended up meeting her in my life. So that was enough to convince me that this stuff is real, and I think it's super, super important. The only caveat I will now add to this philosophy is that you want to leave room for life to exceed your expectations. So don't limit yourself. Don't get too explicit, like, I would never date somebody who's below 5'5", when in actuality, the woman of your dreams might be 5'4", or what have you. And I think most people would look past like the vision thing, but you just kind of have no idea what like the right person is or could be exactly. So get directionally close, define especially things like core values and vision for the future, because those need to be aligned, and then let your feelings and intuition carry you from there. This is deviating a little bit from the document in that it's not super intrinsic to self, but I think of all relationships as a mirror. So if you've done all the work in this document, you're a man or woman on your mission, then you need not worry about finding the one, because you have become that person, and it is simply a matter of time before you meet your mirror. And then finally, for the vision, we're going to harness the power of imagery, complete the vision boards, print them out, or set them as images on your digital wallpapers. Frequent review will strengthen the image in your mind and expedite their manifestation. Aim high, but focus on predominantly how you want to feel in these future states, not what you will have. Allow life to exceed your expectations. There it is again. You have no idea how much better it could be. So I even wrote it in the document and have surprised myself, or reiterated myself. But yeah, you can see these kind of 4 vision boards. If you know anything about vision boards, you are familiar with this concept. But again, this is another one where I made these vision boards or the vision boards in my personal life, and you eventually just find yourself waking up and seeing the view, like, because I would put them as a wallpaper and then potentially change the wallpaper or move on, right? Like file the picture somewhere else, not really think about it. And then you wake up one day and you're scrolling through the photos that you took on your phone and you're like, wow, this is looking shockingly similar to the vision board that I created. And we don't have to spend the rest of this podcast or a podcast dedicated to itself on what the hell is going on there. I don't know that I couldn't, quote unquote, know for sure, but I can definitely say that something wild is happening, whether it's your unconscious mind seeking out the data set that you've preconditioned it with, or it's law of attraction, manifestation, drawing it to you. I look at it as a yes and situation. They're all describing the same phenomena, just using different words, but clearly it is effective because I am not the only one who has told you to make a vision board. I only include it at the end here because I do believe it's important, and it is kind of a great way to encapsulate the vision that you now have for the future of your life, starting at the self, moving directionally towards your mission, and then having a vision for where you want to go. And then the 4 categories here being family, social, lifestyle, and fitness. So that brings us to the very end of the DaVinci Blueprint. Remember, you cannot change the wind, but you can always choose which wind is favorable. The journey ahead will not be easy, but no sailor became skilled in still water. Godspeed, memento mori, and be the Renaissance. That's where I will leave it for this episode. Like I said, if you want access to this document or a copy of this document for yourself, message me anywhere that you can find me, Instagram, Twitter, comment even on YouTube. I know there's no messages there, but we can find a way to get it to you. Or you can go to the Vitruvian.club and join either the community or just the subscription that allows you to get this document here. Literally, you could just subscribe for 1 month and then cancel it after getting this download. I will hold nothing against you. My life goes on, even if you simply can't afford to stay in that membership. No hard feelings at all. I really want this to help as many people as possible. It will be on wherever you've heard this, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Subscribe on YouTube. That is the main mission over the next decade. It will be YouTube, continuing to evolve content there. That's where I've got the behind the scenes, as I've alluded to. I'm back in Bali, so I'm going to be doing weekly vlogs. Life should be pretty cool to document if I do a good job of documenting it, because I'm living an amazing life here and will continue to do that into the future in my life, God willing. So thank you for spending your attention, your most valuable resource with me today. Memento mori, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Vitruvian podcast.
And if he fails, at least fails while daring greater, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.